Welcome to the Real Turf Techs podcast for the technician that wants to get real. Follow along as we talk to industry professionals and address hot topics that we all face. Along the way, we'll learn tips and tricks. I'm your host, Trent Manning. Let's have some fun. This episode of Real Turf Techs on Golf Course Industries Superintendent Radio Network is presented by Foley Company, a strong supporter of equipment technicians and golf course maintenance departments everywhere. Foley Company offers a proven solution for above and below the turf for turf professionals everywhere. To learn more about Foley Company's line of reel grinders, bed knife grinders, and the Air 2 G2 family of products, or to find a distributor, visit www.foleyco.com. Foley, ready for play. Welcome to the Real Turf Techs podcast, episode 123. Today we're talking to Haas Mengloi, CTEM, equipment manager at the Bears Club in Jupiter, Florida. The Bears Club is a private 18-hole facility with a 9-hole par 3. It's Jack Nicholson's home course when he's in Jupiter, Florida. Haas has mostly Toro equipment. Let's talk to Haas. Welcome, Haas, to the Real Turf Techs podcast. Thanks for coming on. How you doing?
Well, I'm doing very good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. No, looking forward to it. Tell us how you got into the turf industry.
Well, it started back in the 80s. When I got off high school, I knew exactly that I wanted to be a school teacher. So I took primary ed in college, and that lasted about 2 years. Decided that's not the route that I wanted to go. So I moved to Florida and went to a 2-year certificate course in South Technical Institute in Boynton Beach, Florida, and got certified in marine engine. So I thought I wanted to be a boat mechanic, and I did that for not quite a year. And the first 6 months, the guy that owned it was a Mercury Marine dealership. He brought me about 20 buckets, 5-gallon buckets of stainless steel bowl, nuts and bolts, and 2 brand new bins. And my job the first few months was to sort out all those nuts and bolts, quarter by 20 by 3/4. I mean, they got to the point, like, if you throw a bolt in the air, I can tell you what size it was before it hit the floor. After 6 months, he started telling me that they were going to have to lay me off. And I didn't like that. So I started telling my neighbor at the time. And he told me exactly, he's like, hey man, you helped fix my lawnmower. I saw in the newspaper where they were looking for a lawnmower mechanic at a golf course. I'm like, really? And he said, yeah. So he showed me, this was 89. So we still looked in the newspaper. And I saw the ad and went to apply. The position was for an assistant technician. The equipment manager asked me what machines I knew how to work on. And I looked around, and the first things I saw were those old Toro walk mowers. And I said, oh, you see those machines right there? I can fix them all. He said, well, you're hired. Just so happened to be the guy that they were replacing. That was his job. So.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So did you turn wrenches before that? I mean, what led you down the mechanic road?
When I was going to school I attended the University of Guam. That's where I'm from. And my oldest brother wanted me. I always worked on stuff. He was a car mechanic. My dad was an engineer on cargo ships. So we were all mechanics. He wanted me to learn how to fix boats and go back to the Pacific Island and, be the marine guy. When I went to the golf course, I've never seen anything that looked like a walk mower. So I didn't know what I was looking at, how to fix it. How did he told the equipment manager that I knew how to work on it? So when the first Monday that I started, they finished. It was 2 golf courses that used the walk mower. So it was course 1 and course 2. They lined up the walk mowers, and I was supposed to check them. So I put one on the table and I looked at it and finally I called the equipment manager over and I said, listen, Harvey, I know how to fix this mower, but I know how to fix it my way. But since you're my boss, I want to do it your way. So you tell me how you fix it. And from today forward, I'll fix it exactly how you do it. He got excited. He called the meeting. You see this guy right here? Now that's the first mechanic that wants to do things my way. So,
That's
and
awesome.
he was very thorough. I mean, he put a walk more up on the table. And all right, first thing you do is you grab this hand file and you face the bed knife. Back then, we didn't have die grinders. So it was all hand file and adjusting. And he went through the whole thing. And after that, I did the second one and third one and just kind of, that's how I went.
That's awesome,
So,
though. That's cool.
yeah.
I mean, what better way to learn about that stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Is-
The other
Go ahead.
technicians were onto me real quick, though. It was a 4 18-hole golf course club, and there was probably like 9 mechanics, including me. And it took them about 3 4 days to realize I didn't know anything, and they started like kind of giving me a hard time. I was like buying people sodas, and
Yeah, that's funny.
yeah,
That's good stuff. Well, cool. What's your least favorite part of the job?
probably the paperwork part. But other than that, not really anything. Like I love everything I do.
Do you end
So
up doing a lot of paperwork?
not really. I mean, it's more like on. I recently got the My Turf Pro, and I started inputting all that information. And I said to myself, I hate this part right here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that kind of stuff I don't like. But everything else, I think it, including the people, there's nothing I don't like about it.
No, that's good. And I don't know of anybody that got in the business and said, I want to do paperwork. I mean, most of us like to work with our hands and all those things. So, I don't know.
When
But
when I'm sorry, when I first started here, I've been here 24 years. When I first started here, as most of you guys do, the equipment managers, they usually go to like management meetings. I went to one and I asked my boss, I'm like, hey, listen, not this meeting really didn't have anything to do with what I'm doing. Do you
mhm,
mind if I skip them? And it's like, hey, if you don't want to go, you don't have to go. So I got out
yeah,
of that and never went
yeah,
back.
I don't blame you there.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of us, we like to stay in the shop and kind of behind the scenes, and nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah.
What's your favorite tool?
I don't think I have a favorite tool other than I really like that X-Beam that I heard on one of your podcasts. That thing is like a palm saver. That
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I seen you post on X or Twitter about that. That's awesome.
yeah. But probably I would say it's my most sentimental tool. It's a set of Mac tools socket that I bought when I first started. I want to say they cost me $280
Oh,
back
yeah.
then. Each drive, I have them in my toolbox. Hardly ever use them anymore, but I look at them every once in a while and just remember my old boss, like, oh, you're investing in yourself. You got to get them.
That's awesome. Did y'all have a tool guy that come by the shop back then?
We had both Snap On and Mac Tool, and I went into that for over a decade.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, no, yeah, it's
Yeah.
so funny. So you can have this for a small payment, $25 a week for the rest of your life.
Golly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy the way they get you. And yeah, what stuff, how expensive everything is, but they are coming by the shop. If you did break something, they'll change it out, all those things. There's some perks there.
Yeah. Here at my job now, my current job, I talked with my boss, my superintendent, like maybe 17 years ago. Everybody were borrowing my tools. And I told him, I said, here's the deal. I don't mind you borrowing my tools. I said, but eventually you will lose my tools. I said, you're losing my expensive tools. I said, you use my tools and whatever I feel that I need as a tool, I will purchase it. And it goes in my toolbox as my personal tool, but you will pay for it. And it's worked out fine for, the last 20 years.
Oh, that's awesome then. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know that everybody is lucky as you are.
No.
No, that hasn't been my experience. I mean, luckily at my place we have a shop box and it has tools that we use too. I have my own set and the guys that help me in the shop, I let them use my stuff, but nobody on the crew is going to use my stuff just because the way
Well, I
they,
mean,
take
you've
care of
been
it.
around. Yeah, you've been around long enough. I remember when I first started, you can't even look at somebody's toolbox, or you go close to somebody's toolbox, they look at you like, you're getting too close.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and actually the mechanic that mentored me and I kind of trained under as an assistant mechanic, if he saw somebody getting close or opening a drawer on his toolbox, and he was a little bit, I mean, he was a short guy, probably, I don't know, 5'8", and a little wiry guy though, 140 pounds. And he'd say, "That's a good way to get your GD arm broke." I mean, he would say, I mean, all serious
Uh,
too.
yeah.
Don't mess with his tools. Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of people that are that way, and I mean, understandably so. I
Yeah. I
mean,
tell.
it's
Yeah.
just like if somebody on the crew went and got in your vehicle, right, and was,
Exactly.
like,
Same thing.
yeah, it's similar for sure. Do you have a story there? I cut you off.
No, I was just gonna say my assistants, the assistants I've had over the years, I let them borrow my tools, but I will tell them like, hey, if you borrowed a tool, it's probably something that you ought to buy. And I tell them you don't have to buy a Snap-on or Mac tool, but buy that
Hmm.
tool that you need.
I
So
think that's a really good point. And I had a close friend. He worked with me for a little while, but we've been friends before and after that. And he started out more in the automotive industry. And when he was working under people, when he first got started, he had a master mechanic that was mentoring him. And every time he would borrow a tool, the guy would make him write it down, what tool he borrowed. And once he borrowed the same tool 3 times, he had to get his own.
that's good.
And, and that's a good way to like build your set because,
Yep.
I mean, nobody wants to go out and dump, however much, 5 grand, 10 grand, 20 grand, on a full set of really nice tools.
Yep.
So, you get it. It's like the old Johnny Cash song, one piece at a time. That's how
Yeah.
you get it, one piece at a time.
That's right.
What do you
Uh,
do to relax or find your balance?
well, I do a lot of fishing and a lot of hunting and a lot of fishing. I don't necessarily call it relax. I mean, I know you do a lot of bass fishing. You got to get up super early. You're staying up late, tying rigs and all that kind of stuff. When I go on vacation, like I usually hunt out of state. Well, I can't wait. Sometimes I can't wait to come back after a 2-week hunt and get back to that. It's more relaxing at work to me. You get in your groove, familiar things, and after work, sometimes people leave and I'm still here and I'm
Mm.
relaxed. But I do a lot of fishing and I do a lot of hunting.
That's awesome. That's all good
Or
stuff. Yeah, where do you hunt? Out of
do
state.
do archery in the mountains up in Southwest Virginia
Mm.
and do rifle in Kentucky. Sometimes I did a lot of hunting in Georgia also.
Okay.
But now it's mostly like in the mountains of Virginia. I do it all over there. Archery season, rifle season. I do muzzle loader.
Okay.
So
You have a land you lease or you hunt on the public land?
it's a private land. It's a few private lands. I have a friend of mine that lives there. Actually, 3 friends of mine, and I go there and there's so many deer. They'll put whatever they put me. I'm
Hmm.
I'm harvesting something.
Oh, that's
Uh,
awesome. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
No, that's fun. Very cool. What has been your biggest challenge to date?
Biggest, I wouldn't call it a challenge. Probably like the training part. I've trained over the 24 years I've been here. I have trained 5 or 6 equipment managers, and it's challenging at times. Every one of them is different. personalities, different mentality. And probably the biggest challenge is for me to adapt to each new assistant and work with what they have.
Yeah,
So
no, that's really good. Do you have any tips for us on or anything you found that works for you on that? Because I think that's
don't,
something that we all
don't,
struggle with.
I would say patience and don't get mad. You know, don't, I shouldn't say don't get mad. Don't stay mad. I'm quick to get on somebody, but I'm quick to let them know it's done. You know, we'll, we'll go for a ride and, we'll crack jokes and go on our lives. It's enough to just let somebody know that's not the way to do this, or, you can do better, and then let it go.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Is anything that you hold on to, it just
No,
makes every day get a little bit
yeah,
worse. I think if you're holding on to
yeah,
something, so yeah, it's definitely better to just air it out, get it in the open, and we all mess up,
yeah.
we all make mistakes every day.
The biggest change that I've been working on is trying to be more positive or give a more positive input. One of my last assistants, he got an equipment manager's job that, most almost all of them, actually all of them, are in private clubs. And, you know, after he's got established there, he invited me and my wife to dinner at their house. And his wife said, "Why, Rob was always complaining about how you never say anything good. You always point out the bad, but look how well he's doing now." And, we're all laughing and kidding about it. But I went home and I'm like, maybe I should, you know,
Mhm.
I need to be more positive and give more positive input.
Well, I think it's important for our peers or our superiors, whoever it is that has some productive feedback like that, you know, give it to us because sometimes we don't really know if we're doing it right or wrong. And I mean, none of us, or I say none of us, most of us didn't go to school to learn how to be a manager. We just started
Yeah.
out as a mechanic and then we were successful. So then we got somebody working under us and then you're trying to manage people. And I think we all need a little help in that area.
I think it's progressed a lot. Like, I remember I've been doing this for 35 years, and you've been doing it for a minute as well. And you've seen the change in the culture. I mean, when I first started, it was nothing for a mechanic to throw wrench across the shop or throw wrench at somebody,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's not acceptable, and
Mhm.
you'll get in trouble for it, and it's not the right way to do it. And people are just doing things the correct way. We're more educated, or we have evolved. I've definitely evolved a lot. The way I do real to the way I deal with people, everything.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
we learn over the years.
Yep. Every day is a learning opportunity.
Yeah,
And yeah, learn something every day if you can. And you're right, the
absolutely.
culture has changed so much. I mean,
Yes.
I remember when first started, and it was at a private club, but it was go. And I
Yeah.
mean, pretty stressful, pressure on. And I find myself over the years, I think I was so comfortable with all that pressure that now nobody else is putting the pressure on me. So I put that pressure on myself. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's healthy. I need to take a step back and say it's okay. But as you say, I have got better than I was. And, some of that I think comes with age too.
Yeah, I think so.
That helps some. What's the strangest thing you've seen on a golf course?
Probably on my previous job, probably seeing a plane land on number 12 fairway and taxi all the way to almost to the green. Didn't make it on the green, but it was right there on the approach.
Wow, that's
So,
crazy.
yeah,
So was it emergency landing?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
I think they ran out of gas or they immediately like roped it off and we weren't allowed anywhere near it.
I
But
guess FAA's
yeah,
got to do their stuff.
yep.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But Fairway, that's a good place to set one down if you have to.
Yeah, that was before they did all the renovations. You can't do it now, but back then it was like wide open fairways on that one particular golf course.
It was actually a member guest tournament, and one of our members was, forget exactly what his title was, but he was basically a used aircraft salesman. And anyway, so he had a buddy that owned a helicopter and flew him and his guest in on helicopter. They landed in one fairway, and it was a big deal. It was pretty cool though,
Yeah.
because we have an open area that is owned by the golf course, and that's where we keep all our natural debris and stuff like that. But there's a field there, nice landing zone. So I was out there talking to the pilot for hours, about how the
Okay,
helicopter
nice.
works. So that was, yeah, super cool experience. Do you have a mentor in the industry?
He recently passed away. He was the guy that hired me when I first started. His name is Augustine Montes. He was a farm mechanic from Mississippi, and they moved to Florida. The whole family moved to Florida, and somehow he got on the golf course. The guy could hardly read, but he knew his stuff, and I learned
Mm.
everything that I mean. He taught me how to weld. He taught me just about everything that I learned in those 10 years that I worked for him. And if I was to say the one thing that he taught me that I will never forget, whatever you do it right the first time, don't let it come back and bite you in the, you
Uh
know
huh.
what?
Yeah. Yep.
He said that constantly, and I mean, it's something I tell all my assistants. Don't let it come back and bite you.
No,
Now,
I mean, that's words of wisdom, words to live by for sure.
yeah,
And I do think it's interesting, I guess might be a good term, but people that I believe anyway, that a lot of people judge other people that may be illiterate, or they can't
yeah,
read, they can't write, and they think they're stupid. But
yeah.
those people, I I mean, honestly, I think they're smarter than most other people, even though they might not know how to read or write. And I
We,
don't know exactly why, and I bring this up because my grandfather, he couldn't read or write. He only went to school until he was like 8 years old. And he couldn't even sign his name. He just put an X on the paper. But he was a really good mechanic. He was a good brick mason. I mean, all these things. And he definitely struggled with describing how things work because he had such a small vocabulary. And he would say, this hickey moves that hickey and this thingamajig. Yeah, I mean, he called everything a
yeah.
thingamajig or a hickey. Um, but yeah, anyway.
No, that's how he was. I mean, I remember when it was like in the 90s when John Deere first came out with the 3365 fairway rough mower, the big tractor mowers, and none of us knew anything about it. And they said they gave us like a service and parts manual. And every time something broke on it, he would wait until everybody left and he would call me over and we would read that service manual and I
Mm-hmm.
would read it to him and he'll sit there and think about it and say, okay, I know exactly what's wrong. All right,
Mm-hmm.
what you need to do. So I'm reading it to him. I'm not comprehending what I'm reading, but he knows exactly what I'm reading. And he's telling me, like, all right, I know what we have to do. We have to take this apart and we have to do
Mm-hmm.
this. And
Yeah.
that's, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
That's cool. So I think it's important to me that I grew up that way and I got to experience that. And it makes me appreciate being able to read and write a whole lot more. And I
yeah.
think a lot of us probably just take it for granted because just about everybody knows how to read and write now. But
Yep.
it wasn't that long ago that was not the case. What would be your dream job or opportunity? Guiding hunts.
guiding hunts or guiding fishing or
Yeah,
yeah, like a combination outfitter, probably one or the other. Yeah.
that
Or
was good. Yeah, I was
yeah.
just kidding. Did-
No, that's exactly.
oh, I guessed it. All right. Well, awesome. Very cool. Well,
Uh,
I don't want to steal your thunder there.
no, that's I mean, if I'm staying in the industry, I probably would want to teach. Probably we used to have a school here in Lake City that taught. We had turf classes and equipment managers classes, and that probably would have been my dream job is one day be teaching those classes. But outside of the industry, yeah, I'm definitely fishing guide or hunting guide.
I love it. That's
But
good stuff. Yeah, I don't know what we're going to do about the education and schooling and all those kind of things. There's,
eh,
I don't think there's enough interest because enough people don't know about it. I don't know exactly what the
I
answer
I
is.
mean I don't know how you guys are doing in your state, but we are experiencing a serious shortage of equipment managers at that level, at a higher level. We are experiencing a shortage, and I have a lot of superintendents that call me looking for equipment managers because I usually play people. And 2 weeks ago, last week, there was a job for 130,000, and I couldn't play somebody. I struggled. I had two guys both turned it down, and there's really nobody else there. Not at the level that we're at. And that's a problem. And I don't know how to address it or how we can address it, but I'm bringing an assistant in. I'm only hiring people that are interested in becoming equipment managers, and I'm taking 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years at the most to train them to be equipment managers and place them in another club. And can't do it fast enough. My last assistant, I had to call the superintendent and I told him, I'm like, hey, I know you want to hire my guy and his cutting units are, pretty good. I said, but we lease our equipment on a 3-year lease. He hasn't had a lot of, wrench turning on machines, on the actual rebuilding engines or anything like that. You guys are going to have to give him a little support on that. And they're like, man, we'll take him. We don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they were desperate. So,
And I think there is, yeah, a lot of clubs. Yeah. And I mean, I think the shortage is nationwide. And, I don't know about over in Europe and some of these other markets, but definitely in the US, it's short everywhere. And there's a high end club here in Atlanta that's been looking for somebody for probably 2 months at least.
yep.
And I mean, good pay, nice club, great facility, and they haven't filled it yet. And,
No.
everybody around in my area that would be really good for the job already has a job and,
Yes.
not interested in moving. And, but then what happens is we steal somebody from your state and then there's
Yeah.
another spot to fill. I mean, that's just the way it works. And I mean,
Yeah.
there's a bunch of our guys in Georgia going south too in different directions. So
Yep.
I don't know what the answer is, but I hope we figure something out pretty soon. Do you have a technician you would like to work with? I'm kidding.
Probably, I wouldn't mind working with one of my assistants, just for a day to see how they're doing. But that's probably the politically correct way of answer. My real answer, I want to work with my buddy Chris Johnson, the senior, his dad, not the
Oh,
Chris
okay.
Johnson, not the Chris Johnson, by his dad, because we like fishing and we like hunting and we like talking about the how it used to be back in the day, when we first started in the industry and how it's all different now.
Okay. So
Yeah,
Chris Johnson Senior,
yeah.
he's an equipment manager too.
He's an equipment manager at a private club north of me. And him and
Okay.
I he used to work like close to me, and we used to do lunch every Friday. And now
Oh,
he's
awesome.
kind of, yeah, he's further away now. So yeah,
Well, very cool. Yeah, I didn't know that. I just knew Junior.
yes, yeah. Chris
So,
Johnson and I were good friends, and we love to talk about fishing and hunting, and all the equipments we used to have, and the higher heights we used to have, and how it's changed. And
oh yeah, it has. It's crazy the change we've seen. And I mean, really, it hasn't been that long. I mean, 20, 25 years, and there's a lot of things that's changed in that amount of time.
yes, I mean, how long you been doing this? You've been doing this for quite a while.
Since 95 when I first
Yeah.
started. And we were
So
mowing low heights on greens, but fairways weren't low heights. I mean, we were using a Toro 450D with those whatever
yeah,
30-inch, 32-inch cutting units to mow fairways.
I want to say in '95 we were still mowing fairways at 3/4. But our green, we still haven't, we didn't transition to Fifth Eagle until like 97. We had like one of our courses, they were still kind of in the experimental stage, was the Fifth Eagle.
Mhm.
So we still had fifth dwarfs, and we were mowing them at, I want to say 156 or five, we were mowing them, we were actually mowing them with the fractions, like, oh yeah, set
Mhm.
that at 530 seconds, or, now we're going into system, let's set them at 964s. And now that's where I remember when we went to Fifth Eagle and we had to like start lowering our height, but we didn't have the bed knives for them yet. I don't know if you remember grinding the belly of the bed knife so you can get down to 125 or below,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yep.
So
No, yeah, it's crazy how much it's changed for sure. Yeah, and I remember that now. Yeah, 156. That was definitely a popular.
156 was the standard.
Yeah, that was a popular how to cut right there.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But then going into the season, it was like 964s. That's when, you had those events, and, you're like, all right, now we got to go down to 964. But, take your time bringing it down, you
Mhm.
know. Yeah.
That's crazy. What do you know now you wish you'd known on day one?
Probably that my hearing is not replaceable. And
Ah,
my
that's a good one.
niece, oh yeah, and my niece, man, I probably should have taken better care of them, but
Yep.
mainly my hearing.
What about your back?
My back, I would have messed it up going offshore on the boats anyway. So
It was bound to happen, huh? So no
yeah,
saving that. That's funny.
no, but
Uh,
mainly my hearing. I think my hearing is direct. I've lost quite a bit of my hearing, and it's a direct result of me not listening to those guys in those early years when they were telling me to wear earplugs and earmuffs.
yeah. And I know, I mean, I walked through the shop and one of my guys is doing something loud. And I start pointing at his ears and,
Yep.
get it in because
Uh,
I'm the same way. And it's frustrating, like talking to my kids or just other people, and you can't hear what they're saying, and they have to speak up, and especially female voices because they're usually softer, just hard to
mhm.
hear.
My wife gets frustrated at me.
Yep, yep. How do you deal with that person? You got any persons like that on your crew?
Yes, I do. The easiest way for me to do it is send them to the assistant superintendent. We have our superintendent, and then we have two assistants. Those two assistants don't want to hear me all the time. So if I say something to them about one of the operators, they're gonna correct it because they definitely don't want to hear me again about it. So
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
it gets solved really quick.
That's good. That's a good system to have in
Yeah.
place for sure.
Yeah.
Get ready for tips and tricks. Well, let's do some tips and tricks. What you want to
Okay.
share with us?
I mean, I probably have learned more tips and tricks on this podcast. The one thing that I do have that I learned like 35 years ago, and I still do it to this day. We're not allowed, especially at my shop, to put any kind of flammable stuff in tires and blow them up. But what I have in my tire mounting compound bucket is I have a long rag that stays in there. And I take that rag and I go around the rim on the white side, that's opposite of the valve
Mm-hmm.
stem, and I pack it and push it down and blow the valve stem up where the valve stem is. I'll sit that bead and then I'll flip it back around. Now I can pull it down and then sit the other bead. It's a
Okay,
old,
so
yeah,
you're just putting a rag in there to kind of take up the
rag
space.
with the grease with that mounting compound.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so every once in a while I'll have an equipment manager from another club. They'll bring their tire. Oh, hey man, I can't get the beads to see. And I'm like, all right, bring it over. And they'll bring it over and I'll show them how to do it.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, you
Yeah.
need to make a video of that and put it on Twitter. So that's
It's like
awesome.
it's a really old tip that I learned a long time ago. And nobody does it anymore. I think everybody used lighter fluid or something.
Well, yeah, or the bead seeders.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
bead
the
theater.
cheetahs
Yeah.
or whatever
Yeah.
they're called. Yeah. All right, awesome. Well,
Yeah.
let's talk about networking and what you got going on there in Florida with your local technician group.
Yeah. So when I first started this job was 24 years ago. I was in a different end of the state. Well, not the state, but the different side of the county. And when I first moved here, I didn't know anybody. And we used to have an association like years ago. And I've always heard about the Carolina turf
Mm-hmm.
equipment technician. And I decided that I want to just start one over here in our area, a local one. And basically, it was just phone calls. I asked my boss for one of his directory phone books for the superintendents. And I went club by club and I would call the superintendent and introduce myself and say, hey, I'd like to get to know your mechanics if we're going to do lunch. It was a lot of phone calls, a lot of,
Yeah.
yeah, but it happened. That's eventually we had a first meeting. I set up a first meeting and after we've had a lot of get-togethers, we set up our association in 2005. We had the first meeting, official meeting here at my shop. And ever since then, we've had seminars and we have meetings. We have Friday lunches that will go anywhere from 2 guys to 30 guys getting to having lunch at a local place.
Yeah, no, that's super cool.
Yeah, so it started out as a county. We called it a Palm Beach County Mechanics Association. And then we went to Southeast because we had a lot of people coming from Miami and South. And about that time, John Patterson was actually next door to me back in those days. And he was starting the IGCMA, him and Tucker. They were starting that. But I tell you what, the thing with this, I tell everybody that you have to start this networking. When I am having a problem with the machine, I know how many people I can call who are either Toro guys, John Lee guys, or Jacobson, or this guy used to be a car mechanic, or it doesn't matter what it is.
Mhm.
You're networking, the people in your area. You're gonna have some help, and sometimes you'll have to be the guy helping. But that's how it works. And also one of the things that Chris Johnson and I have been doing is we're kind of bringing like the salary awareness amongst the other guys that we network with. So you don't have this big difference in salary. We have guys that are, making 6 figures, and then you have somebody over here making 60,000 in a
Mhm.
comparable club. That's not right.
Right, right.
But unless you're networking with your peers and with other guys, you're not going to know that.
Oh,
And
exactly
that's
right. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where you have to network to get those kind of knowledge, to get those, to get that kind of awareness. And I think that's how important it is. This networking, I mean, allows me to get to know guys like you and, guys within the industry. I can name off names of people I've never seen that I respect because I see what they're doing and I'm part of their network, you know?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So,
And I mean, I'm super fortunate, and I owe it to the listeners and everybody that's been a guest too, that I've got to travel around and meet a lot of these people.
yeah.
And I mean, that's just icing on the cake. I mean, I love doing the interviews and hearing everybody's story and their background, but getting to go see them at their shop, that's super cool. And if you can do that in your local area, oh,
We have, I mean, it's our local area. Like when we have one of our seminars, we can have anywhere from 50 to 80 people at the seminars,
mhm.
so we're having quite a few people. And now we're having vendors. This Friday lunches that I do, actually, Chris Johnson is doing it. I shouldn't say because about 2 years or 3 years ago, I told Chris Johnson, I'm like, hey, you're the guy. You're going to have to take over our meetings and you're going to take over the Facebook and, let me relax a little bit. So he's the guy doing it. But when we do these lunches now, we're having vendors like calling us, like either me or Chris, and say, "Hey, when are you guys doing lunch? We'd like to come and pay for your lunch." Because
So
people, yeah,
is that the big three, like John Deere or
yeah, it's a
Toro, or
big three. We had our last lunch was paid for by one of the fuel and oil vendors.
mhm. That's super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had Chem Search, they sell grease and that kind of
Yep.
stuff.
Yep.
Um, he would buy our lunch from time to time, and then the parts master guy in our area, it's kind of like Lawson's. Actually, they got absorbed by Lawson's. He would take care of us from time to time, so that opportunity's there. Because a
Yeah.
lot of times it's the same salesman that's coming by and seeing you and Chris and
Yeah.
everybody in that area, and he doesn't mind buying everybody
No.
lunch.
And talking about the salesman, I tell these guys like that salesman is part of your network system. He's the guy that will tell you and give you names and give you people that you can network with that are like-minded. I see so many people who are, can get rude with some salesmen. I don't do that. I treat them like friends. I shake their hands. I say hi to them, and it's been a good relationship. But going back to this networking, it's a lot of work. The reason every time we have a meeting or we have a lunch, I post it on Twitter or on Facebook. Not, it really doesn't do anything, but I just want to try and encourage other clubs and other equipment managers elsewhere that you guys can do it.
Mhm.
It takes phone calls. It takes a little bit of, it takes a lot of phone calls a lot of times. That's how you maintain those relationships and that, doing those Friday lunches, but you can do it, and nowadays with WhatsApp, Chris got me hooked up in your WhatsApp group, and then he created like a WhatsApp for our area and somebody, I think it was Shelby that created the Florida WhatsApp.
Okay. Yeah.
There's so many resources out there as far as this, social media that you can utilize to be a part of a network or to be aware of the people around you and who's where and who's doing what and who would you like to go and hang out with or learn from or maybe help, you
Oh
know.
yeah, for sure. And I get people DM me all the time. I had a guy DM me yesterday, which was Sunday, and wanted to talk because he's a superintendent and he's getting ready to hire an equipment manager. And he just wanted a little advice, like putting the ad together, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure you get a lot of the same thing, but that's, that's the reason I'm on social media is I'm there, and so
Yeah.
far I hadn't ghosted anybody. If they send me a message, I'll get back to them when I can and try to answer their question to the best of my ability. Or the other thing I think that's really important, like you're mentioning with your network, if somebody asks me a question and I don't know the answer, there's a good chance I know a person that will know the answer.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like you were saying with your network, you get to know who the car guy is, who the two-stroke guy is, who's really good on sprayers, who's good on hydraulics, whatever it is. And
Yeah.
you can send people in their direction.
I mean, listening to your podcast, I get very humble. I find out there's so many talented people, in our industry. I wouldn't even be in the same room with them, but the fact that I have this network system, I can have a spray rig go down at 6 o'clock, and I've already made 3 phone calls, and I already, I don't even wait. My boss knows, like, my first priority is to get that machine going. I have no problem calling somebody else. And I have a couple of friends around here that I know, if I call them, they know the answer,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll call them immediately. I have phone numbers to the service techs, for our dealership, but
Mm-hmm.
nothing stays broken here for any length of time because of that network system, not because I'm that smart.
Well, yeah, but you are that smart because you have a really good network system.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you are
Yeah.
smart. And I
My
mean,
boss thinks him. My boss says, "Man, this is the smartest guy I've ever seen."
that's awesome. But I mean, you have a good network system. And that's the other
Yeah.
thing that I don't think we've talked about right now. But if you call somebody in your network system and you need a bed knife or you need a tire or, whatever it is,
Yeah.
and, nothing like that. And especially
Yeah.
if you're in a close area and you're 10 minutes down the road or something, no big deal.
The areas we're at, everybody's within a slingshot. You can go out and throw a
Mhm.
stone over a fence and hit another club.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
For sure. Well, let's do some rapid fire.
all right,
You ready? What's
I'm
your
ready.
favorite movie?
Here's the thing. I tell everybody that's my favorite movie, and it probably is. But I know all the lines to Dumb and Dumber for some reason.
No, that's really good. What would be your last meal?
I've talked about this with Chris Jr. Actually, I would say probably it's gonna be a grits and eggs over easy
Okay.
with probably a venison ham and a nice big, just a whole blueberry pie
Uh,
to
yeah,
finish it off. Yep.
man, that sounds good. You're talking my
Yeah.
language when you start talking about dessert. I'm all over some sweets. What are you most proud of beside your family?
Probably my assistants. Like I said, I have, I think, 5 or 6 of them that have moved on to, they're all in high-end private clubs doing really well. And I'm very proud of, what they've done.
Well, and how proud does that make you feel that you helped them start their career?
It gives me a really good sense of accomplishment.
Mhm.
I mean, I know what Augie, like I said about my mentor, I know what Augie did for me,
Mhm.
Augustine, and I know that I'm just paying it forward,
Right.
to the assistance I've had.
Well, yeah, you're paying it forward, but there's nothing like that feeling. I mean, in
No,
my opinion, anyway, that's way better than fixing a piece of equipment or anything like that.
yes,
Is
yeah,
being instrumental in a young person's life. And I know I didn't anyway. I probably didn't realize it until I was close to 40 how impactful we are on young people. And we
yeah,
get a lot of young people at the golf course,
yeah.
teenagers and, high schoolers, college people, that age group. And they're looking up to you, whether
Well,
you see it or not.
I hope you get to interview Chris Johnson, the junior. I mean, I helped him get his first equipment manager job. He started like coming here and talking to me. I think John Patterson was next door, and he
Mm-hmm.
would go and talk to. He had a mission to find out what he needed to do, to be really good at what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And he did that. And like I said, I helped him find his first job and probably, you know, his last job. Um, but he's at the point now where I call him and ask him a lot of questions, and he's there. I mean, he's way smarter than I am, way more knowledgeable in a lot of things, you know. And just to know that, he probably learned way more from John Patterson than he did from me, but just to know that I had been part of that journey gives you that's those kind of stuff. It still makes me feel good. Like, look at this guy, like,
Mm-hmm.
he was over here asking me questions, those many years ago. Now I'm asking him questions nowadays, and I have no problem doing it either.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a guy work for me 3 years, and he's at a nicer club than I am now. And
Yep.
I'm so happy for him. Like, man, that's awesome.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, well, soon as the job come available, I called him up and I said, "Hey, you need to be looking at this." And you know how small our industry is. My superintendent knew the superintendent there, gives that superintendent a call. So this guy worked with us for 3 years. Really good guy. He's squared away. And when Charlie went for the interview, he was like, it wasn't even hardly an interview
Yeah.
because the superintendent already had another superintendent that he's been friends with for 30 years give him a good word on
Yeah.
him, you know. So, like you're saying, you gotta don't burn any bridges,
No.
you know, because everybody knows everybody around here.
Yeah. I think
So,
most of my assistants have better jobs than I do, not better paying jobs than I do. And I'm okay with that. I'm
yeah.
stoked for them, happy for them, and
Yep, no, that's good. Well, tell the listeners how they can get a hold of you. You're on Twitter, you're on
uh
Facebook.
yeah, I'm on Twitter, but I forgot. I meant to write it down. I'm definitely on Facebook as Haas Mengloi, and I'm on Twitter, and I want to say maybe 8 Mengloi on Twitter.
We'll find
Yeah.
it. We'll tag you when
Yeah.
we drop the episode.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
And yeah, I was gonna say, if you guys are in the area, if you're anywhere near South Florida, you or any listeners, stop by, say hi to me or Chris Johnson, or we'll take you guys around, show you guys around, and we'll have lunch or something.
Oh yeah, for
So
sure.
yeah,
And
definitely. That's up.
I was already pre-planning on this. When the show's back in Orlando, I may come down early or stay late, one of the two, and come down to South Florida and
Absolutely.
spend a few
I know
days.
Chris has been talking about maybe having you coming down to doing one of our seminars.
I would love to. Yeah, yeah. You just
Yeah,
let me know
yeah.
when. And well,
Okay.
he the one y'all had last year in September, it was like the same weekend that we were having a member guest tournament or something, and
Yeah.
I couldn't make it. But yeah, I would definitely be honored to come down there. All right. Well, thank you very much. That's a wrap.
Right.
Thanks
Thank you
everybody
very
for
much, man.
listening.
I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for listening to the Real Turf Techs podcast. I hope you learned something today. Don't forget to subscribe. If you have any topics you would like to discuss or you'd like to be a guest, find us on Twitter at Real Turf Techs. See you bye.